You hear that? We are here about our creature mythical nightmares. What's your mythical nightmare? This is what we're here to discuss. There's monsters, creatures, and we got two guests today. We got the famous Dr. Wu that's been all around the world, archaeologist from the University of Washington. We got his mythical creature, and we got Danny Staton with his mythical creature. So right now, while I play the intro, there's a voting pad right now that there's four. It only allows me to put four monsters. I can't put 5 or 10 or 8. So put in your vote on what you think of the 4 is your mythical creature that's scary. And then if your creature's not on that list, when I get to the show, we get to the part, I'm gonna have everybody put what their mythical creature is. So it's gonna be a great show, monster show. It's time to get this started. Uh-oh. You hear the bells? It's coming. You guys can see the great panel that we have today. Now, again, everybody has their reason on why a mythical creature might be your nightmare. Could be because it's a mythical creature that belongs to your state. West Virginia and the Mothman. There's different reasons. Or you got Michigan or the Dogman. So there's different reasons on why people have mythical creatures. So how we're going to start this show again, people, each one of us has sent to me on what their mythical creature is, and I found a video to kind of give an intro on what that mythical creature is, and then of course we're going to talk about it. And there's thousands of mythical creatures. Like Danny just put up, a wolfman is a mythical creature. I mean, there's just so many mythical creatures. It makes your head spin. But before we start with mine, I'm going to look at the poll that I have out so far, and I was only allowed to put 4 on there. So I put the 4 that was mentioned from Danny and Dr. Wu. We got the Wendigo. We got the Kushtaka, Otterman. We got the Lizard People. We got the Moon Eye People of Cherokee. I bet you right now everybody's like, what the hell is the Moon Eye People of Cherokee? Well, you know what? You're all going to have to sit there and find out later on the show, because we're going to start with me, guys. We're going to start with me. I would say one of the most scariest mythical creatures is the Wendigo.
God,
we're going to start with a video of giving you 5 facts about the Wendigo, so you kind of understand what the Wendigo is. Here we go.
5 urban facts about the Wendigo.
Oh my God.
I know, 5 facts.
Number 5.
That's probably Dr. Wu taking a dump.
The Wendigo is a demonic spirit from Native American folklore. They are said to cause cannibalistic urges and psychosis in individuals that they possess.
Okay, guys, hear that? It's a Native American thing. So what's scary about it so far is it makes Bob wants the urge to eat.
Yeah. meat.
Danny, he wants to eat Danny Stanton right now, and Bob doesn't know why.
I don't know.
A lot of people want to do that.
Yeah,
no,
so
I would not eat that
with the Wendigo.
I would not eat that man saturated with poison.
Let's see what number 4 is.
This horrifying creature has a stag skull head, sunken eyes, and skin stretched impossibly tight over its bones. It is similar to a zombie in ways.
Oh, they're talking about Joe Biden.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Number 4.
What's number 4?
What is it?
Love that music. Gotta get the groove.
Whether in the form of a beast or a spirit, the Wendigo possesses supernatural abilities that make the creature almost impossible to escape.
Right there. I mean, the creature can't escape.
No.
How are we supposed to catch the Wendigo? This thing that makes you want to eat people.
Yeah.
Despite its gaunt figure, it is unnaturally large, fast, and strong, with heightened senses and endurance. The Wendigo is a hunter, immune to even the harshest freezing winter climates.
Yeah.
So winter doesn't hurt it. You can live in the winter. Got sinuses like the dog man, the Bigfoot, the wolf man.
All of them.
Number 3. The Wendigo can mimic human voices, so it is able to lure people away from safety with ease. It will then possess or consume them, leaving nothing behind.
So Bob, that's not a hot girl calling you over the hill.
No, it's a Wendigo. Or
calling you over the hill to trap you.
Or a mermaid. Or a mermaid.
Wendigo infects its host slowly, tormenting them as it takes over the mind and body. The few people who have returned after suffering Wendigo fever have come back completely insane.
That makes sense with all the homeless.
Yeah.
That's why we have so much homeless.
The Wendigo did it.
Yep.
Number 2.
Bet they built the pyramids. I bet they built the pyramids.
We all know the aliens.
According to Native American folklore, once a Wendigo becomes a cannibal, it is impossible for it to ever be full and satisfied for the rest of its life.
Oh, Danny, when Bob gets hungry to want to eat you, we're going to have to stop him from eating you, because once he eats you, it's open game for everybody else.
The longer a Wendigo walks the earth, the stronger its powers become.
Oh,
The
yeah.
creature can eventually gain the ability to control the weather and call upon darkness before sunset.
Oh, that's what's happening.
We got to kill the Wendigo quick, or it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
That's what happened to Maui. It was the Wendigo.
Number 1. Here we go. Drum roll.
Oh, my God.
The Wendigo also gains the ability to manipulate other creatures of the forest. It can summon predators and force them to strike on command.
Man, we're defenseless against its dark arts.
Got one last thing to say about it.
Many tribes performed a ceremonial dance during times of famine to reinforce the threat of the evil Wendigo in the minds of the people during the long and harsh winters.
I would too.
Now,
too.
Okay, so the problem is, right, you got to kill the Wendigo before it walks the land too long to get too strong. But the thing is, honestly, so Bob, you're an archaeologist.
Yeah.
How would you even be able to spot, in a way, a Wendigo if a person's calling you over the words you don't know it's a Wendigo? I mean, how would...
Oh, it's easy. Well, yeah, there's one way you can do it, and it works with all the jinn and dark. Basically, it's a demon. They live in a level. They live in an existence where I know it sounds kind of stupid, but they like to count. They're stuck on numbers, math. They're like a 2-dimensional being that became a 3-dimensional being, which are not supposed to be here, but they're addicted to counting. And so one of the ways that a priest would exercise somebody possessed or a demon to determine if they actually are possessed by a demon, and one of the ways to stop a demon is, as simple as it may sound, is they throw down chickpeas. They throw down beans. The classic, they throw down things that the demon has to stop and count. They can't help themselves. they have to count it.
In China, they throw down rice.
Yeah, and a lot of priests will. That's why they sometimes they have the rosary beads, and everyone's like, "Well, it's the magic within the whatever's the saints." No, they have to count the beads, and so they'll wave the beads around, and the demons have to count. You can't just. That's the best way to get away from a demon is to turn around and throw down. Like some people use, countries will use chickpeas. Indigenous peoples will use corn, dry corn. They'll have a handful of different color dry corn and throw it down. I on my show have 33-sided dice with different colors, and you throw that down, and they have to stop and do the math. And so one of the ways to get away from a demon, and I say get away because you ain't gonna win. They've got powers of freaking way beyond your control. But it's to delay them as much as you can. So yes, Wendigo, indigenous peoples would throw down dry corn, depending on what local regions they come from, what part of the area they live in, whatever small thing, different seeds, they'll throw them down, and they'll have to stop and count it. I know it sounds stupid, but it's there.
I know. The Wendigo is very huge in Canada.
Huge.
Exploring Harley, I did just email you the invite in link if you're available to come on and tell us your version of the Wendigo. That maybe you know it a little bit differently because you're right there, Eric. You know my take on the Wendigo, so you have a little bit different of a take, which is awesome. We would love to hear your take if you're available. If you're not, we understand. So if you want to
question real quick, the Wendigo has the big horns like a deer, right?
Yeah.
What the year do they lose their horns and they walk around with no horns for a while, looking like something else?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
Well, it said it can change like people like a skinwalker in a way.
Well, they can change its appearance, but naturally it's got the horns. Do they fall off once a year and then grow back?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Exploring Harley says
if you found Wendigo horns in the woods, would they have special properties?
Exploring Harley says he's coming. And he's going to give us the Canadian take of the Wendigo, which is
fuck yeah.
That's why we're here. There's different versions. Every country have a different version of the mythical creature.
Eric, let me say this. What if you and I come up against a Wendigo? Do you think, I'm going to ask your opinion, do you think that peanut butter would slow him down?
Hey, you and I have heard from multiple demon hunters.
People.
Not just one person that said they hate peanut butter.
Demons hate peanut butter. The jinn hate why the hell do they hate? But I've heard it like you did. We're both like, how does I don't even know how the peanut butter is slow. They don't like peanut butter. They don't. Maybe it gets stuck in their mouth. Maybe they don't like the texture.
Freaky Geek, if you listen to the beginning of the video that we played, it is part of the Native American folklore. So yes. This thing
kills orcs and everything. I figure it'll work on a Wendigo too. Elven blade.
Yeah, it glows, right? It glows, right, when the orcs are around.
Whenever evil's around, it's supposed to glow.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you guys. I'll just guys real quick. Right now, the voting is there. So far, 17 people voted. The Wendigo is 59%. The Kushtaka Otterman is 6%. Lizard people 18%. The Moon Eye people of Cherokee is 18%. Now, guys, after you listen to these videos and listen to people's ideas, you can change your vote on it. So I would love to see some people change their mind a little bit when they hear about these other creatures. So while Harley is getting ready, I'm just going to play the video of Bob's creature. Now, the actual name of it is, I'm going to butcher. I'm going to say it bad, say it wrong. So fuck you all. Who cares? Kushtaka.
Hey, special shout out to my neighbor, Eric, the other Eric Freeman, who's in the chat. He's my neighbor.
That's awesome. Hey, so the Kushtaka is in America, they call it the Otterman. So we're going to play. Oh, hold on. Before I play the Otterman video, Harley is here. So Harley,
yes.
You know the Wendigo is a very huge folklore story within the Canada community. So in the Canada community, what is it to you guys?
Only in the Canadian community. You have to know. The story originates here from Quebec, from Trois-Rivières. It is Father Paul Lejeune that wrote the story first in 1652.
Oh.
Okay. It was
Oh.
after a meeting with elders in a village at what we call Matawan here in Quebec.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad Harley's here because we're gonna
everything Wendigo. That guy here knows everything on it. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And the video you just saw, that is a bunch of bullcrap.
Oh.
Okay. The Wendigo is not a carnivore. The
Oh.
Wendigo is an outcast. The
Oh.
Wendigo is the outcast of the village. It was a story that elders were telling the kids to scare them not to go in the woods alone. And when they were describing the same way as Iroquois warriors were hunting. Because the Iroquois warriors were hiding in the woods, fighting alone most of the time. And the Algonquins were a peaceful nation. They were hunter-gatherers. They were not warriors.
Yeah, they were peaceful. Yeah.
Yeah. And here we have the Atikamekw nation. And I'm very friends with the Atikamekw nations. And the Wendigo is a lurker. He will watch you. He will transform into whatever he wants. But he wants to bring you into his world. Yeah. Into loneliness, bring you depressed.
Oh.
Being an outcast.
Like a demon.
So basically, he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
He's a liberal.
He's a liberal.
Here in Canada, he's a liberal.
I said that out loud.
But Harley, where do you think where people taking the story, why do you think they add it? They eat people, like they get power, they can't go away from it. How do you think that comes?
More scary.
That's true. That's true. Well, I'm so glad that Harley's here because we got another. The Otter Man is another kind of an Indian folklore story. Watch, here's a video of the Otter Man.
Since we got him here, let's ask him the question. Harley, let me ask you the question.
Yeah.
Have you? No, I know it sounds silly. Peanut butter, man. Does it in fact? No, Eric and I have heard it solids with people. That's why we want to.
Several demon hunters says they don't like peanut butter.
I don't know. Truly, I never thought of it. I never tried it. Probably.
I would imagine it's the nutty peanut butter, Eric. It's not the creamy peanut butter. It's the ones with the nuts in it because they got to count. They got to count the nuts.
All I say is, since they told us about the peanut butter, when you and I got on our research investigation out there, we took a jar of peanut butter and we never got possessed by a demon.
We had no problems.
A good way to understand a demon, a creature, you have to understand the history around it.
Yeah.
So the Wendigo probably will be more attracted by peanut butter because he lives alone in the woods.
True.
Most of the time he's hungry.
True.
But he doesn't want to attack. He will attack the humans in his last defense.
Okay.
Because he wants to bring you with him. He wants to transform you as an outcast. Because the story of the Wendigo was about community. Back then it was really important to have a really strong community that nobody will go alone. And so the Wendigo is the one that lives alone in the woods. He's always cold. He's trying to find food because food runs away from him because he smells so bad.
Well, yeah, that would make sense with the pilgrims when they were told that the devil lives in the forest and don't go into the forest because you'll be possessed by the devil. It's probably comes from the original stories from the Indigo, from the indigenous peoples. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Let's ask a question to the chat. Now, people in the chat, there's 4 of us up here. If we have to send one of us to go with the Wendigo to save the other 3, who would you pick from this panel? Doesn't matter. You want to say me? Do you want to sacrifice me, Dr. Wu, Harley, or Daily Dan? Put in the chat who would you want to sacrifice. But guys, let's hear about the Otter Man. While they put in that vote, let's look at the Otter Man. Oh, hold on, wrong one. Wrong one. Here we go. Here's the Otter Man.
Wilderness of Alaska, where the mountains meet the sea, there exists a legend that has been passed down through generations of the Tlingit people. This is the legend of the Kushtaka, or land otter man, a creature that is as fascinating as it is terrifying. The story begins in a small Tlingit village nestled between the towering mountains and the icy waters of the North Pacific Ocean. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, respecting the land and its creatures. But there was one creature they feared above all others, the Kushtaka. According to Tlingit lore, the Kushtaka are shape-shifting creatures that can take the form of both man and otter. They are said to be malevolent beings with a sinister purpose, to trap the souls of their victims and prevent them from reincarnating.
Like a Wendigo.
One winter, a young Tlingit hunter named Kale ventured out into the wilderness. He was a brave and skilled hunter, but on this day, he found himself lost in a blizzard. As the cold seeped into his bones and his vision blurred, he saw a group of men approaching him. They looked like his kinsmen and offered to help him. Relieved, Kale followed them, not knowing that they were Kushtaka in disguise. They led him deeper into the wilderness, and as the snow fell around them, they revealed their true form. Kale fought bravely, but the Kushtaka overpowered him. They tore him to pieces, trapping his soul and preventing it from reincarnating. Back in the village, Kale's disappearance was a mystery. But when the elders heard of the group of men who had led him away, they knew that the Kushtaka were to blame. From that day forward, the villagers lived in fear of the Kushtaka, always careful not to wander too far from home. Despite the terror they inspire, the Kushtaka are also said to have a softer side.
Oh.
Some stories tell of Kushtaka helping lost individuals, guiding them back to their homes instead of leading them astray. But whether they are saviors or soul stealers, one thing is certain: the legend of the Kushtaka continues to be a chilling part of Alaska's rich tapestry of folklore. So, if you ever find yourself lost in the Alaskan wilderness and a group of men offer to guide you, be wary. For they might not be men at all, but the shape-shifting Kushtaka, ready to trap your soul for all eternity.
So on one end, it sounds a lot like the Wendigo.
The Wendigo, yeah, but on the west side.
But
yeah,
but it said it can bring people back to their house safely. So what's up with that?
Where do you find these videos I can't never find?
Hey, I got my secrets.
I find stuff nobody ever heard of.
Yeah, it sounds like the Wendigo, but on the west. It would be the same mythology story about not going to the forest alone. Exactly as Harley says about on more of the Algonquin area there, and then over here they have the Otter Man. Yeah, sounds like the same story. I wonder if he'll eat peanut butter. Doubt it.
You think it is the same story? Maybe from Quebec all the way to Alaska to kind of just like molted, or I don't know, folklore.
You have to put yourselves in the shoes of the First Nation people, seeing those explorers coming in, and like for a Wendigo, it was a Jesuit that came into a village. But what was the scariest way to scare those Jesuits that were scared of everything? Well, tell them a story. Tell them the scariest story that you have in your folklore back then. So the other man was probably a part of those tribes' folklore, and decided to, well, exaggerate it a bit to scare them off.
Yeah.
I actually put up a First Nations video of a dance they do about Bigfoot from back in the day, and you can see that on my channel, and that just shows that how far back these legends go. And there actually is one about the Wendigo with a horn dancer and stuff. I may put that up next week.
Yeah, it's the same myth stories.
But now, Dr. Wu, you're the one who picked Otter Man. What was intriguing about the Otter Man for you?
Well, it's fascinating because I spent a lot of my time, I was in Japan, I was in East Timor, Indonesia doing archaeology. I was in all those places, and they have the same kind of mythology stories as in when you go to, like, when I was in East Timor, it was a war-torn place. It's a small little part of one island fought the entire Islam nation that came in and fought, but they won. They were Catholic, well, a type of Catholic. But they had these things called a tay. And a tay was a tree that was upside down, like the roots are sticking out, and stuck into the ground. They would bring offerings to it daily. a little bit of rice, a little bit of food. It would always, and I had to ask them, why are those people offering like food to this upside down tree in this weird spot? They said, because it's like a cork and it keeps the animal spirits in the ground. And as long as you keep the earth, like these animal, evil, whatever dark spirits, it keeps them corked in the ground with these upside down trees. And I go, oh, and so describe to me what these, the animals they describe, these demonish things are almost identical to the stories of the Wendigo and the Otter Man. And the same thing in Japan when I was there, they're animist, which are indigenous peoples, a lot of them are animist, which means every object that you see around you has, in fact, a spirit in it. Rocks, trees, the land itself, everything. You can create an idol, whatever, and it will be possessed, as an animist goes, with a dark spirit, or not a dark spirit, but just a spirit in general. And you have to always be, not be careful, but be vigilant and not be rude and not spit on a rock on a trail, just out of anger, just spit on the rock because they're animists. You can't do that. And I know that the indigenous peoples are the same way. And so these stories about these dark animal spirits that come from the ground up, I was privy to hear the information on other cultures across the other side of the pond, and it's almost identical. It's like, wow.
So I got to say this. So they're really offended when you take a poop in the woods, right?
You can. When I was in Indonesia, no, that's a good question, by the way. That's not bad. That's actually legit, because I had to ask that. When you've been having some adak, or you're drinking or whatever, and you're gonna relieve yourself. They say always ask permission and say and give a slight humble apology, and then relieve yourself. And walk away with the respect of that area. You have to let them know this is not your intention of malice. You're just taking a leak, And I remember them telling me, the elders said this, wherever you go, you could be peeing on somebody that's buried, or you could be peeing on an object that is possessed. You could be peeing on something that always ask permission and say thank you when you're done. That's a good question, dude. I had to ask that because I didn't want to piss anything off.
One of the things I noticed that Harley does on every paranormal investigation that Harley does, he always says thank you when somebody answers him.
Oh yeah,
he's always polite. And he doesn't get. I don't know, Harley, if you ever got like harm, but you get less harm because you always say thank you when they answer you.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing that's happened on this stream so far. As I found out, Milliam and Dr. Wu think exactly alike.
Well, guess what? We are now moving over to Danny Statton's what he thinks is his mythical creature that scares him. And it's a group. It's the lizard people.
Yes.
The lizard people. And I got a cute video, I guess you could say, kind of cartoonish.
Well, let's be specific. There's a lizard man, which is a cryptid in South Carolina, and that's in Bishopville, where they consider it like a Bigfoot, a cryptid monster that really exists. And then there's the lizard people, and the lizard people are reptilians from possibly a different planet or a hollow earth, but they're the ones that really kind of frighten me, because legendary, they like to make hamburger out of people. Jessica Jones did a real good show last night, and she was talking about these human eating creatures, and you might want to check that out if you want.
I got the first video is of the lizard people, but then I got a shocking video. Shocking! It's gonna shock everybody. Seeing a woman gets molded by the lizard man. Well, let's check out the lizard people first.
Bizarre conspiracy theories today. Ancient, blood-sucking lizard people disguised as humans who secretly rule the world. Where did this bizarre theory start? And is there any chance that it's all true? Let's find out in today's episode of
Colossal Mysteries.
They go by many names. Anunnaki, Dracarians, or reptilian humanoids, but most refer to them simply as the lizard people.
That's them.
and we're gonna I'm gonna play the rest. But Bob,
these are some evil mother. Oh, I can't say that.
But Bob, what's the royal family? What type of lizard people are they? Before we go further.
I gotta be careful because they talk about
they're not gonna let you back in England if you talk too much, Lou.
Yeah, well, they talk about the Rh negative bloods. It's a specific blood. You have 98% of the population on the entire planet or flat Earth or whatever, the back of the turtle, whatever your custom is 90 is Rh positive blood types. The Rh negative blood types are the ones that what's his name in England goes after and says that they're all lizard people. Rh negative people. I got to be careful because I'm an Rh negative.
Me too.
yeah. I don't want to go all the way in on that freaking thing because then I'll be
the only one on the panel that's an O. Because I'm an O negative. I don't know what that means.
I'm an O negative.
I'm an O negative as well.
Yeah, gotta be careful.
Let's hear the rest of this.
This conspiracy sounds like something right out of science fiction. According to the theory, lizard people are cold-blooded, human-like reptilian creatures who can shapeshift into human form on command. Many kings, queens, world leaders, and celebrities count among their ranks, and they supposedly use their ability to gain power and influence in governments and business all across the globe.
Donald Trump?
Believers tend to look for a few telltale signs. Red hair, green eyes, good hearing,
red hair,
unexplained.
Oh, Bob, we're screwed. We're screwed. And my daughter has green eyes. My daughter does have green eyes.
Scars are all considered hints that a prominent person might be a lizard in disguise. They supposedly came to Earth.
Talk about a scar? Wow, I actually have a small scar here. Now, the story is I flew out of a car as a baby and hit a rock, but I got a scar here.
Yeah, you do have a scar in your head.
It's funny when you talk about people being lizards. I don't think about Bob and Eric. I think about Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
She's part of it too.
From the star system Alpha Draconis and lurk in the underground layers, always plotting to overthrow humanity. Some even suggest these ravenous reptiles survive by sucking the blood of unsuspecting victims. If this sounds less like fact, and
what's that, Danny?
Now they eat you like in that movie V. You know how in the movie V,
yep.
the aliens that pull back and they're really reptiles or lizard people.
Yes.
And squirrels and just swallow them whole. Well, human is the other red meat. And they tried to tell you this in the 60s with soft disclosure. The people who wrote The Twilight Zone, they had this show where How to Serve Man. Are you familiar with it? And How to Serve Man was a cookbook. And they tried to tell us this in the 60s, but nobody listened.
Well, let's hear more about the lizard people.
A little bit more like fantasy.
Oh, hold on. Harley wanted to say something.
Makes me think because they were worshiping a star. And this Sunday, I'm going to investigate the site of a former cult that roamed in certain parts of the world in the mid-'80s and the 90s, the Order of the Solar Temple. I don't know if you heard about them. And I'm going to investigate where their blessing rock was. And they were worshiping the star Sirius.
Oh,
is that a real comic book or did somebody put that together? Because I know
we're going to find out. We're going to find out. But I do want to.
I know all about comic books, and I've never seen that cover.
I do want to apologize. World Bigfoot Radio just informed me that I wrote the Wendigo word wrong in the voting. But hey, doesn't matter. I wrote it wrong. So what? I was possessed by the Wendigo.
He was possessed.
Here we go.
Possessed by Wendigo.
That's because it is. Scholars believe they can trace the origins of this outlandish conspiracy to a short story called The Shadow Kingdom, which was published in a magazine called Weird Tales in 1929. In this story, there's an ancient, almost extinct race of reptilian humanoids who rule the world from the shadows, using their magic to disguise themselves as any person they want. Sound familiar? So that's where the idea started. An innocent short story about shape-shifting serpent men who control the earth. But how did it go from science fiction to all-out conspiracy theory? You can thank a man named David Icke for that.
Yeah,
Icke is something of a celebrity conspiracy theorist. He wrote a book in 1999.
Are we saying that David Icke's not real?
It don't matter if he's real or not. That's one entertaining fella right there, but he keeps me rolling. I watched one of his videos and I laughed so hard it hurts.
Yeah, David Icke hashtag merch.
I guess you could say
millions of dollars.
I'm not buying none of his stuff, but
if
I'll
he
watch.
brings the story to the forefront, I guess there's some positives there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people are going to make money off any stories.
Well, he's
How many
funny.
people make money off the Wendigo and Otterman?
They already are. CJ Faison just bought a farm and makes believe to everyone that wants to go investigate it that it's haunted.
Smart, man. I do.
It's like,
same.
come on.
The same. It's just a fun house place.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all rigged with like EMF and antennas all over the place to make your stuff go off.
Oh yeah, easily. He's got it rigged, man.
Well, let's hear if they say anything else about him.
The lizard people conspiracy. And over the years, he's given talks all around the world and written more books on the subject.
More books.
You'd think for a theory that has so little evidence, there would be very few who buy into it. Yet, according to a 2013 poll, about 4 to 7% of Americans believe the lizard people conspiracy. And while that number sounds small, it represents millions of people. So let's clear the air once and for all.
We don't need any of the rest, but hey, people believe it. I mean, so Danny, do you really? This is just an honest question. Do you believe that in our culture, in the world, that lizard people are part of the community, that they are in power?
Okay, I will not say I believe it, but as a paranormal investigator, I accept the possibility because of the overwhelming evidence to support it from the past. You know, if lizard people was something that they come up with in 1997, you'd think maybe all movies and whatever, but the story of reptilian lizard people actually goes back to all the way to 5,000 BC in Mesopotamia, right? That's the archaeologists down here. We've got ancient India where they had serpent people, half snake, half man. They have in China, they have a serpent man. It's half man. And
all
half
of them.
China is really big for these half serpent people.
All of
and
them.
if you got the serpent people of ancient legend, are they actually referring to the reptile people, the lizard people? You know, you have to really accept that as a possibility.
They all have that.
Archaeological evidence, as Dr. Wood would put it.
Yeah, they all have it.
Yeah, but on the scientific side of you, I probably would think that they probably mistaken people for reptilians, like people with the kind of skin disease that they look like having scales on them,
freckles.
And yeah, but you type like crocodile people, and they see their skin. It's all like shelly, and that's a picture of me. Look at the ears.
Dan, show that picture again.
Hold on, I'm fixing to get to a point.
That's the ones that hit that cabin.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know those.
Now, I picked up a copy of this. It's the Hynek Report. This is a book that's out of print. It's really hard to find now. It chronicles all J. Allen Hynek's investigations into UFOs. And on top of that, it's wrote after he left Blue Book, and where he just basically debunks it and says he was made to lie for Blue Book, and this is what he really thinks about UFOs and the real cases. And there's over 12 cases in this book of lizard people looking aliens and serpents that he calls possible real UFO encounters. Just pointing that out there.
Yeah,
there's a possibility.
I got a horrifying video of a lizard man attacking a woman. Guys, this is so horrifying. You guys better hold on to something. Hold on to your loved ones. This is what you're about to see here is found footage. Haunted hayride. They say not to get off on the road. It's probably on the Paranormal Highway road. One girl did not listen.
Oh.
Hey, there's somebody back here.
Wait!
I can't.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
My God. Did you guys see that green thing?
I saw it. I would just film it too. I wouldn't help. I would just film it.
Look at that.
Oh man. That looks like the slea stack.
That's not even a good.
I think she was attacked by the slea stack. Is he making a
But Bob, what's more scarier? She being attacked by the lizard man, or nobody else in that vehicle went to help her?
Yeah, I would just film it while she's being beaten up by the slea stack too. I don't know. I would too. Maybe she's not a nice person.
Can you come back a couple?
If you're a YouTuber, it's your job to film it, not get involved.
Can you just back the video a couple of frames?
Okay.
He's gonna debunk it. He's gonna debunk it.
Come on, man. That's not even a good Halloween costume.
No, it's fake.
My grandma made me better stuff than that.
Look, you can see the socks where the costume finishes.
All I had to do was I gave it a 2-second glance, and I knew that.
And you see the hair, you see the mask.
What it is this hayride. They do this on a tour there, so they do it on purpose. And I just thought it'd be fun just to show it. The reason I'm showing it is it shows that people, they brace the folklore. They have fun with it. People dressing up as the lizard people. So, and remember, Bob, you're right. In the old '80s TV show, The Land of the Lost.
Land of the Lost.
Based on lizard people, right?
Yeah, the Kushtaka, the ultimate
the tiny Bigfoot. And
hey, they had the slea stack on Land of the Lost. That was a legitimate reputation of what lies under the earth as they saw it back then.
Yeah, no, you're right. That was based off the mythology because Los Angeles had, and I went through the stuff. There's all the folklore stories, and there are supposed to be underneath Los Angeles are lizard people that are reptilian by genetics. And they feed off the loosh of the people there. They feed off their energy. They're energy vampires, and they live underneath L.A.
Bob, I feel bad because Eric Freeman thought it was real. I busted his bubble.
Oh, God.
I've actually heard stories back in the 1920s when they started building the subway that they had hid into some underground tunnels. It led to all kinds of weird underground cities under Los Angeles, and the government come in and closed them off immediately and made them build a subway in the other direction.
Well, that would be true, though.
Somebody asked a question, but we're gonna answer this question after this next video. Because what does Harley think is the scariest creature? And we're gonna ask him that. But I got one more video because it's also you can vote for this thing. It's called the Moon Eye People of the Cherokee Folklore.
That's interesting.
And after I play that video, we'll talk about it. Then we're going to ask Harley, what's his scariest creature? It might be the Wendigo. I don't know. But we'll find that out after. Let's check out this video.
The Moon Eye People. Are they hostile? Are they violent? Are they even real? The answers may shock you. I'm going to answer as much as I can about this cryptic group of people that once called the Force of North Georgia home. First, let's get a little deeper into the woods.
I'm loving that hat.
Yeah, he's repping the Indiana Jones look.
You realize, Harley, you're the only one not wearing a hat.
Two separate tellings as to why
just missing the whip.
One source says they were killed off by neighboring villages, and according to the second, they were forced into hiding into America's cave systems. These Moon Eye people may still be out there, biding their time and lying in wait, or they could be gone. There's no telling, but I want you to take a look at this map. Now look at this one. Do you see the similarities? One is a map of our cave systems here in the US, and this one is a map of where people have gone missing. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's not. So what are these people? Well, according to the legend of the Cherokee, they called them the Moon-Eyed People simply because they couldn't see well during the daytime. They weren't alien-looking or odd-shaped. In fact,
the only reason that their existence is strange is because they look like they belonged in a different land from a different time. They had blonde hair, blue eyes, they were bearded and short. They also had...
Bob, that's you! That's you!
They're probably RH negatives with freckles and red hair. And
hey!
Wow, we got a blue eye, and Bob's got blue eyes.
Because that is messed up.
You're a mythical creature.
Here we go.
Had the ability to see in the dark. The Cherokee never said they were gifted with divine powers or that they were celestials or elementals or anything like that. And here's the crazy part. These people are supposedly the reason that some structures are still there.
According to an early Tennessee governor, John Sevier, he was told by the Cherokee that the Moon-eyed people had built the fort on top of Fort Mountain. Or at least, that's the correlation between Chief Okinosoto saying it was built by white men from across the sea.
Oh, figured.
And according to Benjamin Smith Barton, a botanist, naturalist, and physician, he was told by the Cherokee that when they first came to this land, it was in possession of these moon-eyed people. There almost certainly was a group of people that we don't know much about. The question now is, why did the Cherokee run them off? And where are they now? Are they dead or hiding?
Well, like I said earlier, we don't know. They could be underground or they could be in the ground. But some text from a 17th century book may be able to tell us why the Cherokee got rid of them. This is by Wafer in his 1699 book, A New Voyage, and description of the isthmus of America.
But notwithstanding their being thus sluggish and dull and restive in the daytime, yet when moonshiny nights come, they are all life and activity, running abroad and into the woods, skipping about like wild bucks, and running as fast as moonlight, even in the gloom and shade of the woods, as the other Indians by day, being as nimble as they, though not so strong and lusty. The coppered-colored Indians seem not to respect these so much as those of their own complexion, looking on them as somewhat monstrous. So perhaps the Cherokee did what they did to protect themselves from the possibility of a nighttime attack, an attack they would have little to no defense against, especially when compared to a race of people that could practically see in the dark. But were they actually real? Could they still be out there? I believe so. But what do you believe?
Oh.
Let me know down in the comments.
So what do we think of those people?
Well, first of all, there was an actual genetic team that went to the Cherokee. Eric, you and I both know we have two family members that are Cherokee. They did a genetic testing on genetic whatever is for the Cherokee people to determine some of their certain genes and whatever they've had, and they found 100%. This is not a myth. This is not fake. They found it's a Hebrew gene, a gene from what you would have from the Hebrews from certain areas, and there is a suspicion that there was one of the lost tribes, as the myth goes, that had made its way to the United States or to the States and settled there, and they would become one of the intelligent tribes of the Americas, the Cherokee, which were wiped out and taken to the Trail of Tears and had their land stolen and all that stuff. And ironically, some of them had blue eyes and carried what I call the red gene. And so these are the same peoples that have all these mythology stories of other people showing up with red beards and blue. They say moon eyes. They mean gray blue eyes. It's if you have brown eyes and somebody shows up with bright blue eyes, you would say you have eyes of the moon. It's the same color.
That would go with the theory. That would go with the theory that the first inhabitants of North America came from the Bering Strait, with possibly a couple of other creatures that went by that strait when it was frozen solid, because you find genes of sorry, it's the term of Mongolian descent.
Yes.
That would be Asian. You have traces of European descents in Native Native American that never had European in their family. You had tribes that had disappeared. And those you have to look. You have in South America, you have the Olmecs. You have nothing. And the Olmecs, if you look at the physiology of an Olmec, it was small, pale skin, large eyes, a big cranium, and very intelligent.
Yeah, but they were a lot. They were like 4'5", 6 foot tall, 5.5 foot. They weren't miniature. Like the Moon-Eye people are supposed to be. But I wanted to point out to Dr. Wu real quick is if he remembers the Chinese legend back from China about 1930-something, the Dropa, which had them round Dropa stones that you like a record. They were supposed to be little moon-eyed people exactly to the letter. The description were exactly the same, and they claim to be a crashed from another planet alien species.
Yeah.
And they actually found thousands of these little record-type discs called Dropa stones, which recorded their history in a roundabout language.
Yeah, that's how the Aztec. A lot of them down in South America record a lot of their stuff in around. It's mathematical. It's calendar based off of the astrology. Also, it's got a lot of. It's brilliant. What
it's supposed to be a representation of the portal they use to go back and forth through worlds based in a mathematical formula.
Yeah.
But in a language you can read like a story.
Yeah. It wasn't until later.
Oh, and have you noticed that most advanced nations, I can say,
that works.
People, the most intelligent one of the back in the day, are all disappeared. You had that nation in the southern part of the United States,
Asante, or what was it?
They built like
Asante.
They built like the houses and the mountains and rocks. They found recently
Anastasia.
Thank you.
Anastasia.
Yeah, they disappeared over here in Quebec and part of Ontario and the northern part of North America. The Siksika Nation, they disappeared.
Yeah,
and they were the most advanced nation in the Algonquin Nation.
Unfortunately, when the Europeans brought all the vile diseases and plagues and viruses over here, 80% of the native people's tribes were wiped out.
Yeah.
Well, that's always an argument, though, too. There's a because it only takes one generation to remove an entire group of people by intermixing, by natural selection. In other words, you have for example, people talk about what's the difference between a European nation that invades a new land of certain parts of Europe, like say England, that invades a land, compared to say Spain. Spain traveled with just men in ships, men with no families. Spanish traveled as true sailors as men go. Families left behind, but they had babies and more babies and wives and more wives, and they pretty much changed the entire generation. As in the Dutch and Northern European groups that traveled brought their families and kids with them. So they stayed. They stayed within their family units. They continued with their families, and they had babies with their wives. They brought with them.
They had a word for them people. We called them pilgrims.
Yeah. Well, they brought their families. But when you have a group of men on a ship that just show up by themselves, you can wipe out an entire tribe. Not by killing them, by having children.
It's the same. The first voyage that Jacques Cartier did in North America, the first voyage that he did, it was just men on the boat because he was just looking for the land. He found the land. He came back to France. When they came back in 1535, there were boatloads of them coming down to establish a fur trading post in Tadoussac, establish a fortification in Quebec. they were bringing all their stuff with them on the next voyage. Yeah. So most of the first voyage was like exploration.
Men. Men. Well, and men can wipe out an entire tribe within 100 years.
Well,
they're not gone. They just changed.
We have a question from Slow Motion. He wrote, what about culture that know about the star system? They did not have the knowledge to detect.
They do and did have the technology for that, because if you can go out with your son or daughter and stand there and tell them about the astrology and the mythology story for each one of them, for example, that is Orion the Hunter, and Orion the Hunter killed Scorpio, which saved this this constellation. And they have the stories, and they did them on they sketched them on paper and skins and tablets. Yeah. For example, people talk about when Moses came down and all the Israelites were worshiping Baal, the bull. But what they don't take in the consideration at the time of this happening, it was the time of Taurus. Taurus was the dominant constellation. Taurus is Taurus. And so they weren't worshiping a cow. They were worshiping the constellation Taurus.
Stars.
And the earliest copy of that Moses kind of story is actually on a Sumerian text of another guy from Samaria who led his people out of bondage too. And like the Noah flood thing goes all the way back to 5,550 BC, and was a guy named Gilgamesh who did the same thing. All these stories are what's the word for it? Exactly the same as the Sumerian stories 5,000 years before the Bible was ever written.
It's all constellations.
Oh,
it's all constellations.
And
all of them.
Don't
and
look
you
for
have to go by that
Bible.
earlier dating to realize that they're in the constellation of Taurus, because if you'd get by the dating in the Bible, you would have been in the constellation of Leo.
Yeah, all the dates
wouldn't work. So you had to go back in time to realize these stories were written when the constellation of Taurus, the bull, was directly overhead.
Yeah. Let's go back to the earlier question that somebody wanted to know. What is Harley's creature? I know we said the Wendigo. If it's a Wendigo, that's fine. But what is your opinion of the nightmare creature mystical that scares you?
I would after an experience that I had in a graveyard that I investigated recently, and when the British came over, they decided to just get along and say, hey, I'm going to install my settlement here.
Yeah, and slaughter.
No matter who was there before them. And a group of Scottish decided to, put their settlement where a group of not a Atikamekw, but a group of native. Their settlement was there. And before building the settlement, they decided to build their graveyard on top of their graveyard.
Oh, man.
When I went to investigate that graveyard, there was something that was running around the graveyard.
Oh.
But it never came in the graveyard. And my take would be it was a freaking Wendigo. Because at the moment we were hearing him on one side, and afterwards we were hearing him on the other side. And there was always murmuring like people was talking. At first we were thinking probably it's the spirits, but the talking was always outside, like it was trying to lure us to go to the woods, to go and check it out. And when I right before the word shapeshifter came on Spirit Talker, and then I realized we're right in the middle of native land, of sacred, and that couldn't be more sacred than sacred. And we're right in the middle of Algonquin Nation, and never know, probably the elders before leaving, they said, well, I'm going to cast a Wendigo here. our Wendigo is going to stay here and he's going to hunt you for the rest of your lives.
You know, I believe you. I debunk. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in any of those things. However, I went to Manchester and I talked to a guy who used to go ghost hunting, and I asked him, where's the best place to get evidence? Just tell me. And he's giving me stories of how in the graveyard it's real, and they're going to give you messages that are bad. Like they're going to say mean things all around the house. Like you talk about something. I said, nah, man. I went there and I was with somebody with a camera, and it was a gal. And this thing was coming through and saying very mean things about hurting her. I was like, we need to leave.
You and I caught words at the Black Diamond Cemetery.
Yeah. Oh, they were saying all kinds of things.
Oh, guys. Y'all went to the whole Gettysburg Cemetery, that whole Gettysburg battlefield thing. Yeah. Y'all got personal freaking relations together.
And the real Wendigo will go for your weakness. If you're scared, he's gonna scare you. If you're not scared, and if like me, I was a UN peacekeeper. I was 6 months in Bosnia in 1995, right in the middle of the war, when everything, the shit was hitting the fan.
Yeah, you're scared.
It takes a lot to shit me, but that night, was luring me like, come and help me. But I had that little voice that told me that don't go. If you go, you're.
And I left after getting those messages, and it got to me. I wasn't afraid, but it was threatening. The person who had the camera was a gal, and I'm like, oh, this thing is saying very, very. This is not normal. And I'm not being picked up. I walked around and checked for anybody doing a fake transmission. This was at a certain time. I made sure I'm debunked. There's nobody doing transmissions. Oh no, this thing knew, like you said, Carly, it knows where to get you. And you can come after me all you want. I'm making jokes, man. I'm leaving tobacco, and I'm in the section doing it with where all the military guys had passed away and they have all their graves. Yeah. I left them tobacco. American style. I left them tobacco on top of certain graves. I gave it to them. I said, thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys, whatever. I moved around the other part of the cemetery where they have the urns. This is where they have the cremation section. And when I hit this cremation section, there were things coming through there that were targeted towards my camera gal, and they were mean. And they were saying things bad. And I was like, oh, man, we have to go. And she's like, why? I said, we have to go. I didn't tell her. No, we have to go. I ain't telling her right there.
So after that experience, I think Wendigo would be on
what you should have done right then is peed in the urn and give them some cigarette butts and chewing gum wrappers and said, bring it on.
At first, it was the Bigfoot, because my theory that Bigfoot would be Yetis that came during that big migration to North America and adapted to our weather. Yeah. Because you can come across a Yeti or a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch or whatever you want to call them anywhere in the woods, and you don't know what kind of animal it is. It is.
I can think of 100 different reasons, but
but what after happened to me at Maplewood Cemetery, when they go just went a knot.
Yeah. Before we end the show, we're gonna have fun with the chat. People in the chat, if you look at the votes right now, the winner is Wendigo,
and I was a Benaki Nation. Sorry, I was a Benaki Nation.
Now the second place winner are the lizard people. So people in the chat, if you took a group of Wendigo and the other side of the battle is the lizard people in the chat, who will win that fight? Will the Wendigo beat the lizard people, or will the lizard people beat the Wendigo? So right now in the chat, put 1 for Wendigo and put 2 that the lizard people will win if they battle each other.
You guys see how fast Eric dismissed Otterman?
Because they're real, and the Wendigos are
Otterman lost in the voting.
Man, nobody likes Otterman.
Bob, the Otterman got 4th place.
Oh, come on.
Otterman sucks. What's he gonna do? Flat water on you?
It's Otterman. Nobody likes Otterman. He gets the worst.
All right. So the Wendigo, one person put the Wendigo will win the fight. Sandra wrote Wendigo will win the fight. We got two people, so the Wendigo is beating the lizard people. Come on, there's no love for the wizard people.
There's no love for the otter man. That's what's happening here. This is like a discrimination.
Hey, Exploring Harley, have you ever heard this one? Exploring Harley.
Yeah.
When I was 11 years old, I saw what you would call a Bigfoot, right? A big, hairy, covered creature in the woods. And I went to my friends in the Native American community because we have the Opis down here, the original people. It's like the First Nations of South Carolina, but they're a band of different tribes that all come together and stay in one spot now. And I was talking to some of my friends up there, and they said that I didn't see a Bigfoot, that I saw a Wendigo, because Dogman, Bigfoot, Wendigo were all the same creature in different shapes.
It's probably
what is your opinion of that?
It could be the Wendigo that decided to adapt itself with put a set of horns on his head. I don't know, but I'm a true believer that the Bigfoot could be a Yeti that during that big migration around the Bering Strait, because it's the same kind of looking creature, but the Yeti is all white and the Bigfoot is brown.
Well, actually, there's quite a now. Let me point out there are quite a few differences. Yetis are said to be 4.5 to 5 foot tall, more gorillish, they don't get 7 foot tall like Bigfoot. Ask the Sherpers. I've seen thousands of documentaries, and also they have a different kind of foot. Their foot ain't exactly shaped like a Bigfoot. It's more of a 3-toed bipedal creature.
Well, you guys
look at the Sherpton prints.
An animal can adapt.
Yeah. Well, you guys know bears are white.
I'm saying that there's a big difference between a 4.5 foot gorilla-like creature with 3 toes and a 7'5" to 8 foot tall Gigantopithecus looking creature.
If
now they both could be from the same family tree, but I think it might be different branches.
Well, if you put 5,000 to about 10,000 years of evolution, probably.
Well, and then you also, when you're dealing with that evolution, you have to deal with the groups of how many they were to reproduce. You know, you could be dealing with some genetic defects if they were inbreeding due to the low population. I think that explains a lot of the
if human beings can migrate through the Bering Strait in sub-freezing temperature to migrate to North America, how come a creature with fur that is living in harsh conditions cannot...
See, my problem with that is, and I'm an asshole, I'll be the first one to say Danny's always got an opposing viewpoint because I'm a dipshit. But let me give you my opposing viewpoint. You're saying that migration along the Bering Straits, you're giving human beings absolutely no credit. You trying to tell me that these smart, intelligent, even though they're caveman level intelligence, can hunt and fish and catch seals and do all that stuff we've proven they done to way in the past, right? But they had to walk their ass around that freezing Bering Strait to migrate into this country. Who says these people couldn't build boats and float over here real quick? They never had to put 1 foot in the ice. They could have had a ship, a boat. Who knows what they were capable of 350, 400,000 years ago.
Well, that's why Bob mentioned about bears being white. What was your point about that, Bob?
Well, you have a polar bear and you have a black bear. They're the same color, and people are saying, "No, they're not. That's a black bear. That's a polar bear. They're white." No, bears are the same color. Bears change color with climate. Their hair is all white. And they actually, if you go underneath a black bear's pelt, if you guys know about bears, you'll know. Oh, there's white hair in here. Bears change color in their climate. Bears are amazing animals that can change color in their climate. They adapt to the color of their topography. Bears are all the same color.
If you want a prime example of that, there's some grizzly bears that made it with polar bears, and they had these little babies. And these little babies, if you take them up in Alaska, they turn white. And if you take them down into northern Canada and Washington, the zoo up there where you live, they turn brown.
They call them spirit bears.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's the same adaptation. It's just an adaptation gene that they carry, and,
Exactly.
and a primate can also carry the adaptation gene over thousands of years if it was into the conditions where it was so harsh, where it had to have that adaptation. Where you can have a yeti that's white, and he makes his way all the way across Canada, where it starts getting into deeper brush, where he starts to change colors to red, to brown.
To brown, to red, getting larger because he has to.
Thing is typically variable. How much does the size thing increase based on the terrain and climate?
Food, terrain, environment,
and, defense, because he has to adapt to get.
You think he's going to go from 4.5 foot to 7 or 8 foot tall?
Yes, natural selection.
Have you ever seen the evolution of a dodo?
Slightly.
That it went to a large winged bird to a small winged bird in a span of probably 50 years, not even 100 years.
Natural selection.
Because he had no predators on the island that could hunt him. So why fly? So
okay. You're saying that you're saying it once again. You're saying that evolutionary curve of the dodo bird was based on they really didn't need to fly because nothing was chasing them. I'm saying that it's based on the low number of species and low number of population in their species, and they were all inbreeding, and they lost the ability to fly like them inbred Kentuckians lost the ability to read.
Well, natural selection.
But how do we?
That's
honestly, guys, how do we really?
Effect. It ain't no evolution.
But how do we really know? I mean, I'm not saying one person's right or wrong about the 5 feet versus
anything's possible.
Without having a Bigfoot or a Yeti in a zoo, we truly don't know. We're basing it all off people's stories and evidence and footprints, but we physically don't know because we don't have one in our backyards.
Well, what I saw when I was in Manchester, and the Mancuians that lived there, the original ones, they had these buildings, and they said all these children worked there. It was a run by children industry, and I said, no, they were run by adults. And I had met this guy at a laundry shop, and he was very small, and he wasn't a midget. He was, I don't like using those words. He was not a little, he was a regular proportion guy that was just a little, and his wife was this big gal. She was huge. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can see that. I bought weed from him. He was cool as shit. And then he had kids, and they were my size. You understand? And I'm going, and this is just one man with one huge wife, and he has children my size. And it took one generation to change sizes for these humans.
Here's another thing interesting that gets me. Okay, we all agree here, real quick, that most of Alaska, the upper part of Alaska, is on the same geometric hemisphere as the Himalayas.
Just about higher.
Yeah, well, exactly. But on that same...
It would be the Rockies here in Canada. It would be about the same latitude.
That same elevation. It's Alaska and the Himalayas, the high mountains of Canada, most of Russia is all up in that higher altitude, right?
Yeah, but with natural resources.
Top of the earth, so to speak, right?
With edible resources.
And now you got these Yetis, human-like creatures coming across your Barren Straits into Alaska and on down into Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why would the reports of the Yeti be 4.5 to 5 foot, more gorilla-ish? But yet, when you get right across them Barren Straits, right into Portlock, Alaska area, for hundreds and hundreds of years, you've had reports of 8.5, 9 foot tall, gigantic monsters. And it's the same way all across Canada. 8 foot, 9 foot, gigantic Bigfoot monsters. In Washington State, Bigfoot, he wasn't no little foot, and he was a giant, 7.5, 8 foot tall, right down to Roger Patterson's film, where it was 7.5 foot tall, right?
Yeah, well, as long as they're compatible.
Now, let me finish. All across the top of the country. Go state by state, like Jeff Harden out there in the Midwest, 7.5, 8 foot monsters, right?
Well,
Long Island Bigfoot caught him on camera recently. him and Jessica went up there and hell, they caught more stuff on tape. I should hang out with these guys. But once again, 7.5, 8 foot hairy monsters, all the way up in the blue line Bigfoot guys catching them 7.5 foot, 8 foot tall monsters upper part of New York near Maine. Come down into Kentucky and Georgia, Bigfoot. Hell, right here I've caught giant things on camera, but all the reports here are giant monsters. And then suddenly you get down to Florida,
and they're small.
And it's a skunk ape that's 5 foot tall again.
Yeah.
Just like his Yeti. Now, what explains that genetic curve?
That's bottleneck genetics. It's called bottleneck genetics. Yeah, it's bottleneck genetics.
I find that interesting.
Yeah.
Right across them Barren Straits, where you should see Yeti-sized creatures with the same kind of foot, you don't. You see a giant 8 foot monster, 9 foot monster with a human looking foot.
Let's go back to the bottleneck genetics. Bob, what is the bottleneck genetics?
Well, okay, so you got bottleneck genetics, which means you have all the genetics that go to one point. So you have both large, small, medium. Everybody's in the same little crossroad. So, and then you got a point where it's called natural selection, where okay, so I'm a smaller primate, and that's a bigger primate, but we're going into an area where there's not much food. So I'm going to take on a smaller wife. I need to feed her. I need to feed her less. I don't need her getting freaking gigantuan because there's not enough food for that because she needs a lot of food.
God, she's gonna have 2023, Bob.
Yeah, if she's gonna have babies for me, they better be a little bit smaller because I can't afford to feed them. We're in a point where there's swamps and there's less food, and it's natural selection. It's bottleneck genetics where everybody meets in one spot, no matter what your size is, and everyone's gonna start doing mixing and breeding and selecting their mates specifically for the volume of food that you have. So in other words, I'm not taking on a biggin. I'm not taking on big mama. I'm taking on small mama. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to take on this small mama, going to have small babies because I got to be able to feed her and the babies. And, you know,
you're saying Florida has less food for Bigfoot versus
probably, yeah, well, they're not in the forest. They're down there eating out of the water, and they're eating mostly out of swamps. And then there's lots of snakes and lots of way more killer fucking predators down there, alligators, what have you. You need a little bit of a smaller person that can move a little bit quicker around them freaking alligators going ta 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 around the water's edge. Bigger target, more death.
Yeah, just take in the animal kingdom. Just take the macaque monkey breed.
Yeah.
Okay, the macaque will stay a macaque, but you go in Japan, macaque will sustain the cold. You go in northern part of Cambodia, you got the stump-tailed macaque. They don't have a tail. And you go down to Thailand, and you have the long-tailed macaque.
Yeah.
They adapt to the environment they will be living in.
They have to for food.
It's every animal in the animal kingdom will adapt his body to the environment you will live in. So if there's like 200 tall freaking trees with tree stump that big, well, you will adapt of being big because he wants to climb those trees.
That's what Danny Staten says. Well, yeah, that's exactly.
Well, the whole theory makes sense because the Yeti's out in the snow and stuff where there's less food.
Yeah, so he'd be a little smaller.
And the Yeti sightings, the Sasquatch sightings that we have here in Canada, especially here in Ontario, the Sasquatch are a little bit smaller than the ones that we found out west.
Yeah.
Because the trees around here are smaller. So he has to adapt like the creatures that are around him.
Well, what I saw in the news, if the fires keep going the way they are, Bigfoot's going to be pretty easy to find in Canada because there ain't going to be no forest left at all anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
It's burning down out west now. Here in Quebec, it's over, but it's out west.
I saw last night they got 1,000 fires going on in Canada right now.
Yeah, and
the
they
evacuated and invade the U.S. again.
Yeah, they evacuated Yellowknife last night. People that went down to Manitoba. It's very, very hard.
So when they have these big fires, how many of the animals actually get decimated, and how many manage to run and get away? Are the moose running in herds away, or I'm concerned about the Bigfoot? Are the Bigfoot getting burned up, or are they running in front of the fire? How does that work?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that when we had fires here in up here north where I live, they had to evacuate the Indian reservation over there. And one of my friends who lives up there, he called me up and he said, "We're seeing like bears and moose running in the streets because they're getting away from the fires."
Well, the animals are amazing.
Let's do this. We're gonna wind down now about the end of the show, but let's go around the table where, like, Daily Dan, what do you got coming up on your channel?
So as soon as I get off here, I'm gonna start uploading a video of the occurrences that happened this week. I'm not gonna go into it. You'll just have to watch the video. I got 2 videos. I'm gonna put one out tomorrow and one out today and one out Sunday. The first one is like the beginning of what happened, and it starts out a little slow, but it does have a little action in it. And Sunday, I'll put out a video where you'll actually see Bigfoot's big blue balls on camera.
Nice. I need to see them testicles.
I think I might have got a little too close, and the name of the video will be Bigfoot's big blue balls caught on camera.
And if you guys like music, sometimes Daily Dan at night will do a channel and play this awesome Bigfoot music, monster music, and it's a fun time if you like music. So Bob, Dr. Wu, what do you got coming up?
Well, I'm actually going to the mountains this weekend. So I will be up there with a bunch of our cousins going archery hunting. So I'm going to be up in the hills. I'm going to be up there running around. I'm going to be up in the mountains running around this weekend. So
that's awesome. I'm going to be in the Olympic Mountains next weekend to do a Bigfoot investigation.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, Bob, you know there's a hurricane coming, right?
Yeah, there's a big one.
You're gonna be up when it starts pouring down rain and landslides and all that shit again.
That's why I'm going. That's why I'm going.
The hurricanes,
disaster. Who's gonna head towards?
Well, the hurricanes don't like Fresno. It stays away. Nobody likes Fresno. It stays.
I like to go into the storms. I'm like a storm chaser, man. It's been hot and miserable and bland and no cloud. I mean, when I say hot, guys, it's been bad. Like, and all of a sudden, this weekend a storm's coming. My cousins are excited. They know this deer will be running around. Everybody's going to be stirred up because the storms are coming, and it's the best time to get footage, to see animals migrate, see everything move around. This is the time to get up there. Like, people hide. It's a nice weekend. We should go up there. But it's a nice weekend, so the animals are going to be sleeping under trees. They're not doing anything. But when a storm's coming, everything moves.
Well, let's see what Exploring Harley has coming up.
Well, I will answer Mike Johnson. He lives in Prince Edward County. I think that's in Ontario. I'm in I'm in Shawinigan. You know, former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, his hometown. Yes, that's the only bad thing we exported. And slow motion, please keep your rain. We have enough here in Quebec. I have to do another backwash in my pool because it's too full again. And coming up, I have 2 investigations. I have the Blue Church investigation. This is a little settlement that never happened here in Ontario. Another place they built the cemetery before the settlement. I have that Maplewood Cemetery coming. That cemetery that was built over a Benaki cemetery. And this coming Sunday, I'm going to investigate that energy rock in Rawdon, where the Order of the Solar Temple was.
Oh yeah!
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, dude. I love your stuff, man. You get into it.
And of course, I'll be on next week. You know, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now, next Friday, I do know the topic is going. We're going back old school, Bob. We're going back to movies that predicted the future.
Oh yeah, so many. Where
That's
do you
old
start?
school. We used to do that in the past, and I got a bunch of movies that supposedly predicted the future. It's kind of a fun deal. But beyond that, man, I hope everybody have an awesome weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I love having this kind of a panel, everybody's different opinions. It's awesome. It's fantastic. So beyond that, we'll see you all next time on the Paranormal